KAL HALAL YAHAWAH BAHASHAM BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI AHDAWAM BAHASHAM BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI. This is another digital epistle to the 12 tribes of Israel. Double honors to the elders and apostles at GMS, and honors to likewise to the brothers pushing on the likewise doctrine. Any brother and sister, any brother and sister that is continuing this faith, just in the last days, listen, you're like, this is belief. We're terrorists now. This is not believing in the bid or the G radiation. That's a G 5 times. Believing that believing that the election Trump election was rigged, but it's not Trump, because apparently that was cool. President after believing all that was rigged. You're domestic terrorists. But that's not the point of this lesson. Ecclesiastes chapter 10:8. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another.
Mention Haiti, and this is what you'll likely hear.
Poverty, natural disaster, now political violence.
Every report about Haiti has to include the line that it's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere.
But hold on for a second. Something's missing in this conversation, right?
We need to be all thinking about the relationship of what we're calling poverty in Haiti and the relation to the richness of the rest of the world. And how did the rest of the world get so rich?
Let's start with France. Imagine if you were enslaved, and after fighting for your independence, you were forced to spend the next couple of generations paying compensation to those who colonized you.
Reparations for slaveholders is a new one for me.
That is exactly what happened to Haiti.
This is punishment for their unwillingness to remain under the yoke of slavery.
In 1697, France and Spain ended a war with each other by dividing up the Spanish colony Hispaniola. Through the labor of enslaved indigenous and black people, Saint-Domingue became the world's most profitable colony, exporting sugar, coffee, and indigo.
Enslaved people in Saint-Domingue suffered some of the harshest and cruelest slave punishments in the entire Atlantic world. Life expectancy was extremely low, such that at the moment of the Haitian Revolution breaking out in August of 1791, the vast majority of enslaved people had only been on the island for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know if it's in this video or it's in another video, but they're gonna tell you the life expectancy is 7. Goddamn 7. The average life of an Israelite slave, of a Levite slave, working on a plantation at Hispaniola, 7 years.
They were from whatever nation that they had been captive and brought over, and they basically said no.
Self-liberated Africans led the Haitian Revolution and ended slavery in present-day Haiti and the Dominican Republic. After 12 years of fighting the French colonial power, which had tried to reintroduce slavery, the formerly enslaved people
ended that chattel slavery.
Saint-Domingue officially declared their independence and renamed their country Haiti. Many countries, including the United States, refused to recognize Haitian independence in fear of slave rebellions. And France refused to accept Haiti's independence unless Haiti paid 150 million francs as so-called compensation for lost revenues from slavery. That was around 10 times Haiti's annual budget. But Haiti couldn't decline the indemnity request since the French came ready for war, carrying more than 500 cannons on their ships. Articles from that period show that the French king knew the Haitian government wouldn't be able to repay the debt, which decimated Haiti's economy. Haitians had extremely high taxes, and most of the tax revenue was paid for the indemnity. This left the education system, public infrastructures, and healthcare underdeveloped. Agricultural land was also depleted to grow cash crops that paid for the debt but couldn't feed the country. It took Haiti 122 years to pay off its debt and required taking high-interest loans.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy to say that Haiti is poor and Haiti must be poor. And I think the better question, whenever an entire people is characterized as poor with this word, is to say, not why are they poor, but why aren't you?
But it's not just the French who have played a role in Haiti's misery.
So, the United States has intervened in Haitian affairs quite a lot.
President Moïse's assassination in 2021 left some Haitian officials calling for U.S. intervention, but not everyone agrees.
The only way that could ever even have a fruitful outcome would be if it was because they were in dialogue with the Haitian people for the first time. Because that is not what usually happens. That's not what happens at all. They dialogue with the people claiming power, and some negotiation is struck between those vying for power and the United States government. There's a lot of people saying, no, we don't want the United States to come and intervene again, because this is, again, a repetition of history.
The history that Professor Doubt is talking about involves the United States' 19-year occupation of Haiti, an occupation that killed thousands of Haitians. Following the assassination of Haiti's president in 1915, U.S. President Woodrow
Repetition of history.
They're saying straight U.S. So wouldn't they be saying your country poor? Even the Africans try to, even the Africans at work trying to make fun of my mom, saying, "Oh, we need to get one of y'all Haitians to come kill our president." It's like that ain't that's America. It's America. So look what America. They like to say, "Oh, why are you so poor? Why don't you go back to your country?" I would be in my country. I'd be proud of my country if y'all didn't destroy it.
That Professor Doubt is talking about involves the United States' 19-year occupation of Haiti, an occupation that killed thousands of Haitians. Following the assassination of Haiti's president in 1915, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson's administration invaded Haiti to protect U.S. investments. Then, they forced the election of a new Haitian president who would protect American interests in the country. Racist and fear-mongering rhetoric was used to justify the move. The occupation ensured that the U.S. prioritized its own interests in Haiti over what was best for Haitians. The U.S. occupation ended in 1934 after local dissent and rebellion grew too costly for the U.S. to control. But even after the occupation, the United States continued to play a role in the internal affairs of Haiti. In 1957, the U.S. government threw its support behind a Haitian dictator, François Duvalier. Duvalier and his successor, aka his son Jean-Claude, ate up aid from the United States in exchange for their strong anti-communist stand at the height of the Cold War. Haitian uprisings ended Duvalier Jr.'s rule and led to Haiti choosing its democratically elected leader, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, in 1990. But within a year, Aristide's government was toppled by a coup. Not only was one of the leaders of the coup on the CIA's payroll, but the U.S. had set up and funded the Haitian military and National Intelligence Service, which both played key roles in the coup. Ousted Aristide returned to his second presidency in 2001, and again was forced out of office by a coup that he claimed the U.S. had orchestrated. And after that, President Obama's cabinet pressured a Haitian presidential candidate to withdraw in 2010.
We see reports coming out of various civil society organizations saying that Haitians have lost faith in the electoral process because it doesn't reflect their actual concerns.
And that brought us to the 2016 Haitian presidential election, where late President Moïse was elected with an extremely low voter turnout, but U.S. backing. In February 2021, Moïse refused to step down at the end of his term. The U.S. once again backed him while thousands of Haitian protesters took to the streets.
Many Haitians are saying, we want to try actual Haitian democracy, where the Haitian people, not just the elite and the bourgeoisie and the business interests, get to have a say and determine the direction and future of the country.
It's clear that Haiti's poverty and political instability has long been influenced and shaped by foreign players. So, knowing this, where does Haiti go from here?
We have never been able to see what could happen in this particular black country without meddling and interference. We should try something new in the United States, and that is back off and back away and let the Haitian people determine their own future.
Yesterday marked the grim 7-month anniversary of the slaying of former Haitian President Jovenel Moïse, as well as the end of the term of Haiti's current leader, Prime Minister Ariel Henry. The Associated Press reports that schools and businesses in Haiti closed amidst fears of violence and unrest. Henry's detractors continue to accuse the Prime Minister of leading unconstitutionally and demand he step down immediately.
In the days leading up to the anniversary, a powerful Haitian opposition group, the Montana Accord, called on the U.S. government to withdraw its support for the Henry administration, calling into question the Prime Minister's legitimacy as Haiti's leader amid delayed elections, and growing evidence connecting Henry to Moïse's assassination. Joining us now to discuss what's next for Haiti is Kim Ives. He's the English language editor at Haiti Liberté. Glad to have you back with us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so tell us more about the situation. Have we seen violence or protests in the past few days given this anniversary?
No, we didn't see any big protests yesterday. There were some scattered things, but nothing major. And the two highlights of the day were essentially speeches, one by Ariel Henry saying, I'm not going anywhere until we've held elections by the end of the year, he's promising.
Well, good morning and welcome to Rising. We have a great show.
Yes.
You know, it's one of those things that's entirely unsurprising.
Wave of politically linked violence in the country. Emily, what do you make of this?
You know, it's one of those things that's entirely unsurprising, but obviously very tragic, because this is a man, Jovenel Moïse, who has refused to step down from his position. The UN and the United States have called on them to hold elections by the end of 2021. But we know that this country was shattered by the COVID-19 crisis, was already struggling, obviously financially.
Shattered by what?
Received an incredible amount of foreign.
You know, the pandemic and non-factor. Third world country, it's really
the hurricane in 2010. I'm sorry, the earthquake in 2010, but hasn't. You know, we don't know where the money's really gone. We haven't seen it go to.
Brian, what's on your radar?
So over the summer, I reported here and over at The Intercept that a batch of audios we had obtained, which were backed up by interviews and a cache of emails, showed that the right-wing Bolivian defense minister Luis Fernando Lopez had been plotting to import American mercenaries into the country ahead of the October 2020 election to prevent the party of Evo Morales from coming back to power. The party's candidate, Luis Arce, was polling strongly ahead in the coup government, which
I'll get the contracts out to them in a very
for Morales' party. Fast forward to this summer, I've been tracking leads that suggested there might be a connection between the killing in Haiti and the attempted coup in Bolivia. This week, the Bolivian government released evidence that a group of the mercenaries involved in the hit on Jovenel Moïse were previously in Bolivia ahead of the country's election late last year, and they connected the plotting to our earlier reporting.
Unos audios que fueron publicados por el portal de Intercept ya hace un par de meses, donde se escucha al exministro de Defensa de la señora Yanine Áñez, el señor
Joe Pereira, that audio at the top, who was a central organizer of the effort at a second coup. Some of the evidence that the intent was to assassinate Arce, according to Bolivian Minister of Government Carlos del Castillo del Carpio, came from the computer of Pereira, which Bolivian authorities investigated after our expose. So leading the advance team in Haiti that ultimately assassinated the president, according to Colombian authorities, was Colombian mercenary Germán Alejandro Rivera Garcia, who is now being held in Haitian custody. Rivera, who goes by Colonel Mike, entered Bolivia on October 16, 2020 under passport number AV 969623, 2 days before the Bolivian election, according to the Bolivian government. He came into Bolivia from Colombia via the Vero Vero airport in Santa Cruz, and he stayed at the Hotel Presidente in La Paz, just 2 blocks from the presidential palace. Rivera is said to be one of those who pulled the trigger on Moise, and was one of the few who was told in the days ahead that the plan was not to arrest Moise, as most of the Colombians had been told, but to assassinate him. The Haitian assassination team was organized by the Doral, Florida-based security contractor Counterterrorism Unit Federal Academy LLC, or CTU, which is run by Antonio Emmanuel Intriago Valera and Arcangel Pretel Ortiz, who allegedly acted as a recruiter for the team. Both Pretel and Intriago entered Bolivia between October 16th and October 19th, Bolivian officials said. They entered through Vero Vero Airport in Santa Cruz, which is the home base of the country's right-wing opposition. 2 other men, a former member of the Colombian police and another man, Enrico Galindo Arias, entered through the Colombian Vero Vero route, later staying with Rivera at the Hotel Presidente in La Paz. The Bolivians even released their hotel room.
Haitian authorities continue to
pulled the trigger, in fact.
Wow. So what does that tell us about the motivations of the operation? What does learning that this increasingly does appear to be the work of the Colombians tell us about why this operation was carried out?
Well, our working hypothesis is that it was carried out by the sector of the Haitian bourgeoisie, which has been at war, which has been feuding with President Moise. That was basing a falling out among thieves, if you will, after the Petrocaribe funds from Venezuela's Solidarity Project to Haiti, where from 2008 to 2018, they provided 20,000 barrels of oil a day, and 40% of the revenue from that could go into a fund, which was supposed to finance roads and hospitals and schools, etc. But when that all ended, it was being embezzled by the Haitian government officials. The party ended, and they started to fight among each other. And Moise was in a very bitter feud with them. He had, one of the principal bourgeois families had an arrest warrant out against him, and it looks like that was one factor. Plus the factor that there's a revolution brewing in Haiti's vast shanty towns, and they were scared to death of that.
How does Christian Sano, the kind of Haitian-born American pastor who's been arrested, factor into this question?
Well, I can guarantee he's a complete front. He is by no means. He's sort of an Oswald-like figure. They're just trying to pin it on him. He definitely did not mastermind this or fund it, etc. He was a very marginal guy.
Has come out in solidarity with the Haitian people, tweeting that they're against the United States and the United Nations intervention into the country, and will be holding a protest in Washington, D.C. today. Kim, can you tell us a little bit about what the American media is getting wrong when it comes to covering the assassination in Haiti?
Well, I think they have to look at what is the motivation. First thing, it's inconceivable to us at Haiti Liberté, that the U.S. Embassy could not have been aware of this. This had a giant footprint. They're monitoring cell phone traffic and internet traffic. So how did they not know about this? They blew the whistle on a similar attempt 20 years ago against President Proval and told him, and the conspirators got rounded up, even though they got away and later were part of the coup d'etat against Jean-Bertrand Aristide 4 years later. But in this case, somehow they let it go forward. So really, we have to ask, why would the U.S. do that? What did they feel the situation was so out of control in Haiti, and that Moise had sort of failed in his mission to keep that neo-colony stable, that he needed to be taken out, and they needed it done in such a way that...
Is it neo-colony? It's just a neo-colonialism. Just less visible whips.
Would justify foreign military intervention. So we think Black Alliance for Peace, Code Pink, Answer Coalition, the different groups that are planning actions to fight against possible foreign military intervention. This would be the fourth in just over a century, and the Haitian people don't want it. I don't think the region want it. I don't think the U.S. people want it. We just got out of Afghanistan. What are we doing going into Haiti now? In
2019, you reported for The Intercept on what was described at the time as kind of a half-baked mercenary scheme on the island. When you saw this unfold just recently, did you think back to that reporting, and what conclusions can you draw from what you found then and this new world where there are so many guns for hire available to these feuding?
We economic hitmen have managed to create the world's first truly global empire, and it's basically a secret empire. We do it in many ways, but principally, we identify a country that has resources our corporations covet, like oil, arrange a huge loan to that country from the World Bank or one of its sisters. The money never actually goes to the country. It goes to our own corporations to build big infrastructure projects in that country that help a few very wealthy people, but don't benefit the majority of the people who are too poor to buy electricity or have cars to drive on the highways, and yet they're left holding a huge debt that they can't repay. So we go back at some point and say, you can't pay your debts. Give us a pound of flesh. Sell your oil real cheap to our oil companies. Vote with us on the next critical UN vote. Allow us to build a military base in your backyard. something along these lines. And when we fail, the jackals go in and either overthrow or assassinate these leaders. And if the jackals fail, as they did in Iraq, then they'll be sent in the military. I don't think the failure is capitalism. I think it's a specific kind of capitalism that we've developed. We've created what I consider a mutant, viral form of capitalism. And this mutant form of capitalism, which I think is really a predatory form of capitalism, has created an extremely unstable, unsustainable, unjust, and very, very dangerous world. I've met a lot of terrorists. I've interviewed them for books. I've never met one who wanted to be a terrorist. They're desperate people. If we want to get rid of terrorism, we must get rid of the root causes, that cancer that is destroying our whole system. Because I think it's really important that we understand today we cannot have homeland security unless we understand that the whole planet is our homeland.
What's your reaction, Mr. President, to the Haitian president being assassinated?
You need a lot more information, but it's very worrisome about the state of Haiti.
Does the U.S. have a role in seeking justice?
He just quietly sunk into the Caribbean or rose up 300 feet. It wouldn't matter a whole lot in terms of our interest. The world editor of a paper in the Delaware Valley asked their reporters to come down and talk to me and said, why is Biden so concerned about Bosnia and not about Haiti? Is it because blacks are involved in Haiti? Blacks are what at stake in Haiti, and
is he gonna deny that? Is he gonna deny what he said?
Bosnia, they are European whites. If Haiti, a god-awful thing to say, if Haiti just quietly sunk into the Caribbean or rose up 300 feet, it wouldn't matter a whole lot in terms of our interest.
He didn't even answer. So he basically just admitted that he would care if they were a white country.
Alright, peace, black family. This is part 1 of why the president of Haiti was truly cap. No conspiracy theories. Listen.
In our one and only interview, Haiti's president talks about why his government hasn't administered a single vaccine and doesn't plan to. But Louis says there is a relationship Haitians have with nature that protects them from coronavirus, and a plant that produces certain tea called asosimo that's made with ginger root. I'm telling you what I've witnessed, he says.
And finally, Haiti is one of the countries that will be receiving vaccines from the United States. We will be prepared to deliver those hopefully as early as next week.
Alright, peace, black family. So I'm not going to make a statement anymore. I'm just going to simply ask a question for all my Haitians, right? You're telling me the people who enslaved us, took us from Africa and brought us to Haiti, the people who...
My fellow Americans, I want to announce we have agreed to step down from power. The dictators have recognized that it is in their best interest and in the best interest of the Haitian people to relinquish power peacefully, rather than to face imminent action by the forces of the multinational coalition we are leading. Our objective over the last 3 years has been to make sure that the military dictators leave power and that the democratically elected government is returned. This agreement guarantees both those objectives. Under the agreement, the dictators have agreed to leave power as soon as the Haitian parliament passes an amnesty law, as called for by the Governor's Island Agreement, but in any event, no later than October 15th. They've agreed to immediate introduction of troops from the international coalition, beginning, as I said, as early as tomorrow. They have also pledged to cooperate fully with the coalition troops during the peaceful transition of power, something we have wanted very much. I have directed United States forces to begin deployment into Haiti as a part of the UN coalition, and General Shelton, our commander, will be there tomorrow. The presence of the 15,000-member multinational force will guarantee that the dictators carry out the terms of the agreement. It is clear from our discussions with the delegation that this agreement only came because of the credible and imminent threat of the multinational force. In fact, it was signed after Haiti received evidence that paratroopers from our 82nd Airborne Division, based at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, had begun to load up to begin the invasion, which I had ordered to start this evening. Indeed, at the time the agreement was reached, 61 American planes were already in the air. Because of this agreement, the United States and other coalition troops going to Haiti will now be able to go under much more favorable conditions than they would have faced had the generals not decided to leave power. But let me emphasize that this mission still has its risks, and we must be prepared for them.
Is that not Satan? Is that not Satan? Talking about, oh, they're mad because they didn't have someone who was democratically elected. But did they vote on it? Did they get the citizens of Haiti to vote? The only fault they had the democracy that matters is their fighter jets, man. And then you go talk to a Haitian and say, if you don't succeed in America, it's because you're not smart, you're not working hard. They still trying to
Haiti's dictators, led by General Raoul Cedras, control the most violent regime in our hemisphere. For 3 years, they have rejected every peaceful solution that the international community has proposed. They have broken an agreement that they made to give up power. They have brutalized their people and destroyed their economy. And for 3 years, we and other nations have worked exhaustively to find a diplomatic solution, only to have the dictators reject each one. Now the United States must protect our interests, to stop the brutal atrocities that threaten tens of thousands of Haitians, to secure our borders.
So which one is their interest, their financial gain, or is their interest the lives of the Haitians?
And to preserve stability and promote democracy in our hemisphere, and to uphold the reliability of the commitments we make and the commitments others make to us. Earlier today, I ordered Secretary of Defense Perry to call up the military reserve personnel necessary to support United States troops in any action we might undertake in Haiti. I have also ordered 2 aircraft carriers, the USS Eisenhower and the USS America, into the region. I issue these orders after giving full consideration to what is at stake. The message of the United States to the Haitian dictators is clear. Your time is up. Leave now, or we will force you from power. Cedras and his armed thugs have conducted a reign of terror, executing children, raping women, killing priests. As the dictators have grown more desperate, the atrocities have grown ever more brutal. Recent executing children, raping women, killing priests.
Man, he sounds just like the Hellenists, man. Sound like American history right here, how I just described Haiti.
Cedras and his armed thugs have conducted a reign of terror, executing children, raping women, killing priests. As the dictators have grown more desperate, the atrocities have grown ever more brutal. Recent news reports have documented the slaying of Haitian orphans by the nation's deadly police thugs. In the face of this continued defiance, and with atrocities rising, the United States has agreed to lead a multinational force to carry out the will of the United Nations. More than 20 countries from around the globe, including almost all the Caribbean community, and nations from as far away as Poland, which has so recently won its own freedom, Israel and Jordan, which have been struggling for decades to preserve their own security, and Bangladesh, a country working on its own economic problems, have joined nations like Belgium and Great Britain. They have all agreed to join us because they think this problem in our neighborhood is important to their future interest and their security. I know that the United States cannot, indeed we should not, be the world's policeman. And I know that this is a time.
We're spending the hour with Dr. Paul Farmer, of Partners in Health University, professor at Harvard University, runs the Global Health Social Medicine Department of Harvard Medical School, and has just written a new book called Haiti After the Earthquake. Paul Farmer is also the Deputy UN Special Envoy. Publicly apologized for forcing Haiti to drop tariffs on imported subsidized U.S. rice during his time in office. The policy wiped out Haitian rice farming, seriously damaged Haiti's ability to be self-sufficient. Clinton apologized in March 2010 at a hearing before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
Since 1981, the United States has followed a policy until the last year or so we started rethinking it, that we rich countries that produce a lot of food should sell it to poor countries and relieve them of the burden of producing their own food. So thank goodness they can lead directly into the industrial era. It has not worked. It's maybe been good for some of my farmers in Arkansas, but it has not worked. It was a mistake. It was a mistake that I was a party to. I am not pointing the finger at anybody. I did that. I have to live every day with the consequences.
So were their interests, their financial benefits, or were their interests Haitian-wise?
Of the lost capacity to produce a rice crop in Haiti to feed those people. Because of what I did. Nobody else.
That was President Clinton in 2010. You were already working under him as Deputy UN Special Envoy to Haiti. Did you write some of those words? Did you influence what he has to say? And talk about the significance of this.
Well, I would have been proud to have written those words. And I felt a sense of great relief just at hearing him say that. I did not, however, write those words. And I just would go back a little bit to the work that I've been lucky enough to do with him. It's almost all been healthcare work, mostly in Rwanda, Malawi, Lesotho, and setting policies, which we were going to start in Haiti. This is in 2002. He had launched the Clinton HIV/AIDS initiative, which is now the Clinton Health Access Initiative, which is basically to move forward access to healthcare for people living in poverty, and focuses, it started out around AIDS, but it was never anything other than to move forward this broad, comprehensive model of care that we use at Partners in Health as well. So our work was really around healthcare. And in 2008, he was in Rwanda to break ground on what was, I'm happy to tell you, is a beautiful new hospital in northern Rwanda on the Uganda border. It actually was the site of a military base, so it's kind of the ultimate in swords into plowshares. You should come and visit. So he was there, but he was talking a lot about Haiti in Rwanda. And right after that, the second of 4 storms smashed in Haiti, and I was down there. And this is about the time we started talking about working together more in Haiti. So by March, when he made those comments, we had been spending a lot of time together a little bit before and of course, after the earthquake.
Man, look at this, like you're a black man, you know, especially Haitians, man. You can you know how simple Jake is. All you gotta say is to say you smoked a little weed after walking generations of niggas up destroying communities. You know, play a little saxophone, get some head in the Oval Office. Oh, he a nigga. He a nigga like us.
He was there in Haiti or working on Haiti every day. So when he said that to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I had just done testimony there maybe 2 or 3 weeks earlier in which I argued again that we have not just to build Haiti back better, but to build foreign assistance and humanitarian, the machinery back better. I was watching as he said that. Anyway, just one other thing I want to say while we're on the topic. In Rwanda, I once asked a friend of mine, how come you guys like President Clinton so much? After all, he was president in 1994, which is the lowest hour of their existence for sure. And this friend of mine said, well, because he said he was sorry. And that was instructive to me.
The genocide took
That's
place,
right.
and they wouldn't invoke the word genocide, so it didn't trigger all
and
the international.
he apologized, and I think there's something really I don't want to say refreshing. It's too big an issue to use a word like that. But that candor around the rice subsidies, I think it's healthy, and I feel grateful for it as an American.
So he was criticizing his own neoliberal policies, right, of this flooding of the country with rice from the United States, and then that wipes out the farmers. They come into.
This is like Joe Biden talking about the crime bill, talking about how he arrested all them niggas. Admitted it. They gonna, if we don't arrest them all, they're gonna kill all and rape all our families. We gotta arrest them all. Call them super predators. And then Trump, we call Trump the big racist. We vote him in again, supposedly. And now the solution is put crack is give free crack pipes. Yeah. At the end of the day, Jake just want to come hand in hand. He want the white man to apologize, and the white man just look at him as equals, man. That's all he want.
Cities, they're looking for jobs, and then you have the situation of assembly factories, of sweatshops, and lowered wages.
I want to ask you about another issue you're obviously talking about here, Haiti. When Special Envoy, you've taken a great personal interest in Haiti since the terrible earthquake there. Why is it taking so long, in a nutshell, for that country to get back on its feet?
There are, I would say, 3 reasons. First of all, everyone needs to understand that the third of the country that was devastated, 35% of the population, was all in the city, concentrated, and housing always takes longer. When I became president, Hurricane Andrew, we still had people in temporary housing in Florida a year later. Second, Haiti had no mortgage system. The ownership is unclear. And we've got the streets full of rubble, and we have to rebuild the infrastructure like water and sewer. Third, the donors are having their own economic problems, and that's slowing the flow of aid. We are going to have a housing expo in October. We are going to have land set aside for building right outside the city center, and I think you'll see this thing really pick up in the next few months.
11 years. 11 years later.
The President of the Republic of Haiti, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, accompanied by the President of the United States, President Jefferson Clinton.
For centuries, the Haitian people have known little more than blood and terror. You have been robbed of opportunity and deprived of basic rights. Your
I'm glad he's going to be the one out.
children have grown up with too much violence. Now you have a chance to make real the dreams of those who liberated your nation nearly 200 years ago. You have a chance to make real the dreams of those who liberated your nation nearly 200 years ago.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the playing of honor. Mesdames, Messieurs, Bangladesh, the Caribbean community, Guatemala, Nepal, Canada, Honduras, India.
What's your reaction, Mr. President, to the Haitian president being assassinated?
You need a lot more.
Deuteronomy 28:13. The Lord will make you the head, not the tail. If you pay attention to the NIV. If you pay attention to the commandments of the Lord, Yahweh, your power that I give to you this day, and be careful and follow them, you will always be on top and never at the bottom. Do not turn aside from any of the commandments I give you today, to the right or to the left, following the other gods and serving them. However, if you do not obey the Lord Yahweh, your power, and do not carefully follow his commandments and his decrees I am giving you today, all these curses will come on you and overtake you. You will be cursed in the city and cursed in the country. Your basket and kneading throw will be cursed. The fruit of thy womb will be cursed, and the crops of your land, and the cattle of your herd, and the lamb of your flock. You will be cursed when you come in, and cursed when you go out. Or in the KJV, cursed shall thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shall thou be when thou goest out. That's the NIV. The Lord will send on you curses, confusion, and rebuke in everything you put your hand to do until you are destroyed and come to sudden ruin because of the evil of you the evil you have done in forsaking him. The Lord will plague you with diseases until he has destroyed you from the land you enter to possess. The Lord will strike you with wasting disease, fever, inflammation, and scorching heat and drought. It will blight and mildew, which will plague you until you perish. The sky over your head will be bronze, and the ground beneath will be iron. The Lord will turn the rain of your country into dust and powder, and it will come down from the skies until you are destroyed. The Lord will curse you to defeat your enemies. You will come at them from one direction, but they shall flee into seven, and you will become a thing of horror to all kingdoms on earth. Your carcass will be for food for all the birds and the wild animals, and there will be no one to frighten them away. The Lord will afflict you with the boils of Egypt, tumors, festering sores, and itch from which you cannot be cured. The Lord will afflict you with madness, blindness, and confusion of the mind. At midday you will grope about like a blind person in the dark. You will be unsuccessful in everything you do. Day after day you will be oppressed, robbed, and no one will rescue you. You will plead to be married to a woman, but another will take her and rape her. You will build a house, but you will not live in it. You will plant a vineyard, but you shall not begin to enjoy the fruits. Your ox will be slaughtered before your eyes, but you will eat none of it. The donkeys will be forcibly taken from you, and it will not return. The sheep shall be given to your enemies, and no one will rescue them. Your son and daughter will be given to another nation, and you will wear out your eyes watching them day after day, powerless to lift a hand. And people that you do not know will eat what your land and your labor produced. You will have nothing but cruel oppression in those days. Amen. That's exactly what they did with the rice, destroying the rice crop. The sight you see will drive you mad. The Lord will afflict your knees and legs with painful boils that cannot be cured, spreading from the sole of your foot to the top of your head. The Lord will drive you and the kings you set over you to a nation unknown to you and your ancestors. There you will worship other gods, wood and stone. You will become a thing of horror, a byword, an object of ridicule among all the people where the Lord drive you. You will sow much seed in the field, but you will harvest little, because the locust shall devour it. You will plant vineyards and cultivate them, but you will not drink the wine or gather the grapes, because the worms will eat them. You will have olive trees throughout your country, but you will have no use for the oil, because the olives will drop off. You will have sons and daughters, but will not keep them, because they will go into captivity. Swarms of the locusts will take over all your trees and crops of your land. The foreigners will reside among you, will rise above you higher and higher, but you will sink lower and lower. They will lend to you, but you will not lend to them. They shall be the head, but you will be the tail. All these curses will come among you and pursue you and overtake you until you are destroyed, because you did not obey the Lord Yahweh or your power and observe the commandments and the decrees he gave you. But there will be a sign and a wonder to you and your generations, descendants forever, because you did not serve the Lord Yahweh, your power, well, joyfully and gladly in the time of prosperity. Therefore, hunger and thirst and nakedness and dire poverty, you will serve thine enemies. You will serve the enemies. The Lord Yahweh sends against you. Yeah, he will put an iron yoke on your neck until he has destroyed you. Now this really happened to the northern kingdom, but Jeremiah 49:9. If the grape gatherers come to thee, would they not leave some gleaming grapes? If these by night they will destroy until they had enough. If these come to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen until they had enough? If the grape gatherers come unto thee, would they not leave some grapes, man? See, they went in there, they took over all your rice, did they leave some rice for you to prosper off? Like they said it was for you, them to take the economic stress off of them. So so did it work? Did they leave some rice for you? Did they leave that? Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in their power of their hands. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses they take them away, so they can oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. Isaiah 4:6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. that thou shalt be no more priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy power, of thy power, how BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI, I will also forget these children. And look, there's this tribe of Levi, lawyer. And this supposed to be the definition of clean, man. You know, man. Jerusalem, the Israelites, they've been given a standard. They're clean, but man, these are the boys, so they gotta be clean or clean, you know? And look at us now. Man, Christ is on them heavy, man. Leviticus 25:5. That which groweth in its own accord of thee harvest thou shalt not reap, neither gather the grapes of the vine unjust, for it is a year of rest unto the Lord. I don't know. And the thief cometh not but to steal, the thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I have come that they might have life and they might have it more abundantly. That's what Yahushua is coming. These people wanna keep these people wanna be doing hand in hand. He's on his system. Habakkuk 2:6. Thou shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, saying, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, how long? And to him that ladeth iniquity, that ladeth himself with thick clay, which is the debt. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it shall surely come. It will not tarry. Behold, the soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith. Ye also, because he transgresseth by wine, by that strong doctrine, that the strong drink, that delusion, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. See how he's occupying other countries, and how all the videos I showed you of what they were doing in Haiti, with all the military, when they said they were just coming for democracy. I don't think democracy needs military. Who enlargeth his desire as hell and as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gather upon him all nations, and heapeth on all people. See how he used Bill Clinton used all them countries, Israel, Bolivia, used all these countries as an example to come and rob Haiti. Yeah. And he enlarges his, turned Haiti into hell, and all you can see is death. He enlarged it, so he's still not satisfied. And so all those things not take up a parable against him. How is the hammer of the earth cut asunder and broken? How has Babylon become desolate among the nations? This is a future problem. I mean, we're seeing it right now. We're about to get smoked, man. Crisp, man. To a crisp, man. I'm just happy to see it in my life. I hope BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI can return me, man, so I can be living. I can see that, man. Ooh. He sought the hammer of all the earth, and how he uses economic hitman to destroy the earth. A wise judge instructed his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered, as the judge of his people is himself. So are his officers, and what manner of man the ruler of the city is. Such are all they that dwell in. An unwise king destroyeth his people, but the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. The power of the earth is in the hand of thy Lord Yahweh, BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI. In due time he will set over it one that is profitable, which is Yahawashi. In the hand of Yahweh BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI is the prosperity of a man, and upon the person of the scribe shall he lay his honor. Bear not hatred to thy neighbor for every wrong, and do nothing at all by injurious practices. Pride is hateful before Yahweh BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI and man, and by both one commit iniquity, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit. The kingdom is translated from one people to another. And how Esau is. Imagine you see how Esau is right now. Man, when y'all see what the Israelites in the name of Yahweh, Yahawashi achieve, no, and how much, man, it's gonna look like nothing. How America and all these affairs, and how America done taking over everything, man. How Clinton was just talking about how they just had to put down the Haitian government, Haitian kings, the Haitian sovereignty, man. We're gonna be the same thing. Except for the only thing y'all can't say is that we're wicked. The only thing you will not be able to say is we're doing things unjustly. I mean, you can say it. The last is coming, man. The last is coming from God, from Allah Higher. Man. The last is coming from 144,000, the great multitude that have been made joint heirs with Yahweh, BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI. We've been joint heirs with Yahawashi. Getting back to the Father. But thou shalt in any wise, if thou shalt in any wise set him a king over thee, whom the Lord Yahweh, thy power, shall choose one from among thy brethren, shall set king over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother. So if you're not my race, you're not from my lineage, not from any of the tribes, you're not from my nation, you're not not from my lineage, you're not from my lineage. Well, I'm just gonna set you over. People don't care. These people don't care about us. Man, I'm sending someone just who ain't racist, man. Who don't make a little bit of jokes about, who don't make racist jokes about the other nations, man. Who don't make little scoffing, lower, belittling remarks about the nations. Why would you vote for someone else in your own and they not have that superiority? You see these races every day. I don't think Joe Biden went to school to a black person. His kids probably don't go to school to a black person. So he's telling you right in your face he don't care. Cursed shall thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shall thou be when thou goest out. Haggai 1:6. Ye have sown much and brung in little. Ye eat, but ye have not enough to drink. Ye are not filled with thy cup, with thy cloth, but there is none warmth. And he that earneth wages to put them in a bag with holes. And that's what it's like, man. Even here in America, we may feel like, Judah caught it the worst. Judah caught it the worst. I think oppression is being the most outside of order. And really subscribing to the American beliefs is the most oppression to me. It seemed like Levi is the most oppressed, but I gotta go to Judah because, man, they still have somewhat of a biblical standard, even if they're going off. But I would say compared to the average Judite right now and the Levite right now, man, you know what it is. But the evening, like, man, I wanted to show a video where George Bush removed the president in Haiti from raising the minimum wage from $1 to $2. So I'm not, man, I know it's messed up everywhere. But in America, we think we have all this and we're so prideful. People come from third world countries, they can't let go of the system because of the horrors that they see every day in their country, but not realizing that. And you just get robbed more and more and more and more, man. You could hear Haiti say, "Yeah, I'd rather be an American than Haiti, man." Yes, you would. Right now, man. But it's the third world war. It's the third war coming. This third. Whoa! Every man go flee to his own country. Yeah. For here we have no continuing city, but we seek one to come. We seek the kingdom of heaven. We believe in the kingdom of BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI, coming down to earth, being given back to the Israelites. The problem with people, they think they can just come, they can come get this life, they can achieve in this life, and then they just die, and they just get angel wings, and they live in the clouds forever. So nothing really mattered, man. So they could have been attached to Babylon. As long as they're dead, they just, ooh. Man, so that quick. Forgive me for my sins and just be in the kingdom. Psalms 73. They are corrupt and they speak wickedly. They are corrupt and they speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak lawfully. Trust not in oppression, and become not faint in robbery. If riches increase, set not heart upon them. And what better verse to end this on than Isaiah chapter 14, verse 1 and 2. For the Lord, Yahweh, BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI, will have mercy on Jacob, and yet choose Israel. I will set them in their own land, Israel, and the strangers shall join unto them. Those are the those Israelite foreigners. They shall cleave unto the house of Jacob. Isaiah 14:2. And man, this is one of my favorites. And the people shall take them. People shall take them and bring them into thy place. And the house of the Lord shall possess them forever. In the land of the Lord, Yahweh BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI for servants and handmaids. Man, we're gonna have the heathens for handmaids and servants. And they shall take them into captivity, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors, man. The Lord is not sin, man. That's what I need. That's what I need. I hope this was edifying.